It is also a map where a quote-unquote weaker team on paper can actually make work happen if they get a good early game going and if they carry that early game advantage into the mid and later stages of the game as well. So I definitely think that this Battleground could really fall into the hands of KIS here if they surprise their opponents, because that could be one of their advantages they have. Their opponents might not have enough data or as much information about them as they have compared to other teams. So maybe HotsLady won't really know what they're all about, although, of course, we don't know how much research they have particularly made. We see a Vala ban, nothing out of the ordinary on Battlefield of Eternity in particular, because Vala, just in case you didn't know about it, guys, although by now you probably should, the Hungering Era build on Vala is probably one of the highest DPS builds you can potentially have in the game against the Immortal when they are spawning in the middle of the map, so taking that one out of the equation is usually very, very good. That leaves Artanis still to be open, though. Maybe we're going to see prioritized by Carlo from HotsLady, who actually played a lot of Artanis according to infographics. Let's see.
Let's see. This is a long time to be hesitating about the Tassadar ban. I mean, it's sort of the obvious ban in competitive right now. You can't really let the new team have.
Yeah, they're probably like, though, if Vala's getting banned already, do we really need to ban the Tassadar? Because
look at that instantaneous lock-in. The shielders are so strong in competitive. They're so incredibly ridiculous. Tassadar gets banned. Zarya's available, so we automatically pick Zarya. It kind of makes drafting in the first two bans and the first 3 picks on each side fairly predictable, and I'm almost wondering if there's a way to punish this that teams haven't figured out yet.
Because if what happened to Varian? My man. My good old man. If only he was better now, so we would have one of the few anti-shield mechanics in the game to be, deployed on the battlefield more frequently. But unfortunately, Varian, of course, not really in style in meta anymore across all regions. I think that's one thing all the regions have in common. Varian, not really that popular anymore.
Wow, that leaning Murd and pickup, this is one of those things you see and you're like, well, you just pick a Nubrak, right? But a Nubrak, not very popular in Chinese scene. People just don't tend to play him ever. So even though he does exceptionally well countering Li Ming, because teams don't practice him, don't play him, don't consider him in drafts, you can pick up a Li Ming this early and be like, well, yeah, we have a Li Ming now. Downside of Li Ming, she does pretty much feed free energy to Zarya. Her damage is really, really predictable. It has a large telegraph. You can see the cast animation coming. You can step into it on purpose.
Right.
And giving Zarya a free source of energy like that is usually not a good idea.
Yeah, you have a point there. And something we talked about earlier as well was the fact that China doesn't seem to prioritize Anubrak, and they don't seem to prioritize Arthas, the two really in meta warriors right now after their reworks took place. So I wouldn't actually consider Arthas to be bad by any means on this map either. Like, he offers a lot of control, he offers a lot of lockdown as well that goes hand in hand with Murden, for example, or the Immortal stun zones as well. We see a Tychus band now. Tychus has strong single target DPS for sure, but I'm not really sure if he's a hero that you need to worry about that much if you have a Zarya and another warrior in your team. I think Zarya actually gets chunked high in energy like super fast if she manages to place the barrier on a target that gets minigun, for example. So not sure what the reasoning behind that is.
It does do a lot of work against Greymane. Greymane's primary defensive mechanism, he doesn't have sustain as a ranged attacker who can dive into a melee form, and his health scales at 4.5%. So going into the very, very late game, it's his health pool that actually protects him when he does those massive dives. That makes Tychus, as a close range percentage-based damage dealer, really effective against him. But it's Battlefield of Eternity. Are you really gonna get to the late game? Like, is that? And this is specialists everywhere in China. There's going to be Hammer and Karazim. That's an interesting pickup, considering Karazim, again, late game hero, doesn't really spike until 16 when he gets either way of the 100 Fists or the that cleansing touch.
But regardless of his strong late game talents, what Karazim does offer is strong single target DPS, especially if he goes for Iron Fist, which is the go-to build these days, even if you're solo supporting. So already with the Hammer and the Karazim, they actually have a lot of single target DPS, which might give him an edge when it comes to racing Immortals. HotsLady now, they respond with a Sonya to kind of have a strong solo laner as well. They form up a 4-man lane with Malf and Zarya, which is very scary because you're probably going to be able to outsustain most other comps you're facing. Something I kind of do like about this Karzim pickup, though, is the fact that KIS kind of leaves it open if they want to go for a double support comp or if they want to go for another warrior, maybe. So it's kind of hard to anticipate for HotsLady what's really going on here. We have seen Karzim double support comes even if Tassadar is not available with an Oriole, for example. I don't think Oriole benefits from Sergeant Hammer's damage as much as she does from Vala. So what do you think? Are we going to see double support or double warrior?
I don't think we're going to see double support. I mean, we can't know for sure. KIS is a total blank slate.
Yeah, exactly.
You see the Stitches pick up for HotsLady, which is almost expected. It is
just like Eastern did.
He's in the Chinese meta, and particularly against Hammer, he always seems to be picked up. They're going to pick up Leoric to deal with the heavy body of the Stitches. This is not normally considered a great Leoric map, but he can be reasonable against both Sonya and Stitches. Entomb will split fights pretty effectively. There's lots of narrow choke points that you can, do things with. You can Entomb people into Immortal stuns if you're really on the ball. That is interesting because we don't see Leoric outside of EU mostly.
I was going to say, yeah, he's a European specialty, if you will. A lot of teams here in Europe, they like to prioritize him pretty heavily, especially as a solo laner. He gets in a lot of value because there is really a lot of heroes that can just bully him out of lane. So Leoric, interesting choice for sure. He doesn't necessarily add a lot of damage, though. What he does add is lockdown potential, though, after level 10. So I can see some Entomb BFG's combos going down, maybe, if he lands the Entomb on one or two targets that can get out. And I think on the side of HotsLady, we don't have a lot of mobility. We don't have a lot of teleports or blinks. So maybe that's the kind of strategy they want to go for. But even with a Napalm, it's pretty efficient to just combo those two heroics together and then have the damage over time effect from the Napalm just chunking down health from the trapped targets.
This is gonna be a fun game no matter what.
Yeah.
Which is the best part. This is a draft that you look at it and you're like, either team could win this, but we get to see heroes that we don't normally get to see. We get to see being played by teams that we don't get to see very often, who have their own understanding of the way to lane. In particular, different laning arrangements that have happened in China are going to make this draft super fun. And then just hooks. Stitch's hooks are always one of the best things to cast and to watch.
Stitch is always that playmaker, potentially, that drives the crowd just crazy, right? If you land that perfect fishing hook later on, there's hardly anything else that I want to watch in Professional Heroes of the Storm, because we have players in Europe that are known for some good Stitches plays, but as you mentioned earlier, China is not really short of good Stitches players either, so we can definitely expect a lot of action to go down. Something that was changed on Leoric previously was also the fact that he's now dealing more auto attack damage, so that might also come in pretty handily when it comes to damaging Immortals here in terms of single target damage. For now, though, we see the players here coming in from KIS, all relatively unknown, so don't feel bad if you don't recognize any of those names. Probably most Chinese viewers won't recognize them either. On the other hand, we see HotsLady in red, a little bit more known, I might say. They played last season, placed in the middle of the road, still not one of the top teams, so I'm really, really excited to see what these two quote-unquote lesser-known teams have in store for us here today.
This is a really cool talent pickup at level 1 from Hammer. It is, I believe, the resistant talent. So anytime you get stunned or rooted wall siege, you get 50 armor, which is an enormous amount of CC. And they have, 3 stuns. Sonya's Sphere counts as a micro stun. It's 0.25 seconds. Stitch's Hook also a stun, half second. And Mouth's Root, that's a lot of potential CC to make this happen. We are going to see Greymane get focused here. He does almost get away, but no, he gets focused down in the end. And HotsLady picking up KIS picking up first blood very early on in this game.
Yeah, indeed.
I don't think HotsLady expected KIS to be that aggressive.
I don't really think they did, and just look at the lineup here. Just look at the way they positioned themselves. They did an extremely good job taking down Greymane, who was a little bit too far in, and despite the double support that he had with the Malfurion heals and the shields from Zari, it was not enough. And I actually think they should not underestimate the damage output from KIS. Like, Karzim adds a surprising amount of solo target damage with his Iron Fist build, even in the earlier levels. So, Pommy here, definitely a player to watch. And it's going to be interesting to see whether Pommy decides to go for a Palm, which most supports who are playing Karzim in the competitive scene do, or if he's going to go full aggro with 7-sided to basically chunk down Stitches a little bit more efficiently, because I think it's also a nice defensive tool if Pami is the one who gets hooked by accident and he just disappears in the 7-sided animation to get out of harm's way.
That goes for him.
Yeah, unfortunately the hook
spawning.
Yeah, the hook root combo not really executed very cleanly here, so Murden was able to run out of harm's way just in the nick of time. Now both teams are actually attacking each other's Immortal, and you can really see how Sergeant Hammer, if you don't pay attention to him, oh, he actually gets rooted in as well after the hook. Great job by HotsLady so far, but they still took more damage on their Immortal, and so far KIS is looking good.
HotsLady, despite their early game problems, has been focusing on the objective really well. They've been zoning correctly. They're winning the race. They're gonna get the pick on a Murden here as well.
Yeah, there goes the hook.
Is gonna be huge for them.
That is really good for them, especially considering the fact that they now have enough time for Greymane to just catch up on Immortal damage. You can already... Actually, it's Sonya, so they have 2 heroes who can fulfill that role of just catching up while 3 or 4 of the remaining allies are just holding their ground. But still, I don't think it's going to be enough here. The Immortal for KIS is still too healthy, but it's going to be closer than I thought it would be. Sergeant Hammer in position, though, over the wall, which is a very safe spot for her to be in. They do actually get the first Immortal, so... Great job by our Dark Horse team, KIS, and they actually get another takedown on the Zarya. And you know what that means, guys. Resets going on here. And just 1 kill, but a very satisfying nonetheless.
Looks like Li Ming did not quite have enough mana or cooldowns to make that happen. Yeah. But this is a sieging hammer, like into the Immortal. That's going to get a lot of value. The Leoric versus Sonya matchup is being reestablished in the bot lane. It does look like Sonya is winning that, pressing in extremely aggressively. And it's actually a really interesting matchup because Leoric automatically loses it if he misses his W at any point. But even if he hits his W, Sonya's sustain after her changes to Whirlwind is so high that you can't actually force her out of lane.
Yeah.
So Leoric has to play perfectly just to tie, which is a difficult position to be in.
Exactly, and Murden now getting hooked once more. They really seem to have developed a liking for little dwarves. Mean HotsLady, that is, but gets out of harm's way once again. I really like the pickup of Earth Ally. It's just super solid against those channeled auto-attack animations in general, like Zarya, for example, like a Tracer too. So every tiny amount of damage will get halved by the Earth Ally as long as it's alive, so it makes it the perfect anti-auto-attack tool here as well. Strong against Zul'jin, strong against someone like a Vala too. Just really, really solid all around, and oftentimes undervalued, I think. I oftentimes play in Hero League, and my allies won't really focus the Earth Ally at all, and they won't really notice how much damage it soaks up.
Yeah, it's a surprising amount of damage. Armor is really underestimated in general. When Blizzard first talked about the armor changes, and they said that it was going to be additive, so each point of armor would be more valuable than the point before it. People went to Reddit, they did the math, and they were like, this is going to be insane for when it stacks up. If 50 armor makes you twice as survivable, basically, as you would have been without any armor, but 75 armor makes you 4 times as survivable as you would have been without any armor. It doubles again just by going from 50 to 25. So armor is a massive health increase that is going to be an isolation onto the carries in there, and he does get focused down. That was a nice pick by HotsLady. HotsLady seems to be almost warming up.
Yeah, that was a really good pickup there for sure. Karazim out of position there. Murden also dropping very low once more. We see first 8 now being picked by Sergeant Hammer. We also see level 7 talents unlocked on the side of HotsLady now. Sonya once again going for a fairly standard build. Some Sonyas like to go Warpaint over block, but I think it's still totally acceptable to go for that route, especially when you have a Sergeant Hammer in the enemy team and a Karazim as well. So both teams are racing each other right now, but this time HotsLady actually in a very good spot. They grouped up much quicker than they did last time, and by the same token, KIS just didn't really find the perfect spot in the beginning stage here of the second Immortal phase.
You can see HotsLady positioning for the defense here. This is kind of what they built their comp around, to be in this position. It gives them time to set up hooks. We do see the gonna throw out Carlo is... No, he does miss the hook. And they're setting up. They're trying to make this happen, but Hammer is just doing tons and tons and tons of free damage. And they can't CC him. They can't go in on him with the CC because he'll just get armor, and they won't be able to kill him through the Malfurion healing.
I mean, if you watch the North American HGC, then we all remember the game from Gale Force Esports where they just put double support and Zarya into the team of the Hammer. I think it was Medivh as well. I'm not 100% sure though, but they basically went shields galore to protect the Hammer. But in this game, there's only a Karazim to keep him alive. Speaking of keeping someone alive, Sergeant Hammer is no more, and it looks like KIS is going to crumble under the pressure from HotsLady. They are here to make a statement, and it looks like they're about to get their first Immortal of the game. A much more powerful one than the previous one, with almost 50% of the shields are going to be still left available. But yeah, what I was going to say is the fact that Sergeant Hammer has relatively little protection on her team could really bite her in the end, because Akarazim alone, sure, he could go palm later on to really have a panic button against that burst damage from Greymane and Sonya, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough, especially if Sonya decides to go leap to really turn things up a little bit more. What is your take on the relatively low support potential for KIS here?
I like the fact that he's 7 now. He did pick up first aid, but he's been sieging so aggressively
yeah, that too.
with nothing in between him and Stitches. And I think, despite the fact that he took resistant at level 1, that is just not ever going to be safe. We see Carlo again going for another hook here, but he can't quite position around the arc of the building. He does end up hitting the building and missing it. But Hammer can't keep doing this. Hammer's going to have to start positioning a little more passively, not going into siege mode, or sieging only for a couple of seconds, and that is going to be a beautiful pickup at level 10. Putrid Vial, using the zoning potential of that heroic to secure the kill onto Hammer, and Hammer is just too far forward. Every
just exploded into 100 pieces, it looked like. Very good synergy between Zarya and Stitches here, going for Expulsion Zone and Putrid Vial to just secure that kill. And once again, HotsLady, they just shut down that Hammer super hard. And it's relatively easy to do so while you're a level ahead, especially when that level is level 10. We're going to be able to see the Karazim heroic ability, which is going to be a very interesting one. As I said, Palm could be a mandatory tool almost to keep Sergeant Hammer in better shape. For now, though, KIS, they didn't really lose too much in the top lane. Both towers still alive, if I remember correctly. So it's not like, you know, they just took a massive blow they can't recover from. It's like, sure, it kind of sucks that they didn't really win the team fight there. They're now level 10, which is a huge deal. But and they actually go for it. They go for Divine Pump, and more importantly, they go for BFG plus Entomb. So this is potentially the prison combo that we talked about earlier, and it's going to be very hard for HotsLady to escape. Greymane can't get out of the Entomb, and actually none of the heroes has a blink or teleport spell available. So once they get the perfect execution going, it might actually be their time to turn it around. Once again, Expulsion Zone goes down though. Karazim dropping the palm just in the nick of time here, securing his survival for now. But Palmy once again dropping very low here. Is Greymane going to be enough to kill him off? He's chasing him down, but is it? Oh my goodness. Takes a swipe to the face and says goodbye. Great play by KTY here on the Greymane so far. And it looks like he's actually going to get away unharmed. Nope. Scratch that. But guess what? Stitches here to save the day.
Oh, that was such a painful... They traded 1 for 1, which is something they actually need to do when they are behind like this. But then losing 2 additional kills because they were a little bit too tightly grouped. And there is a decent amount of area damage on HotsLady, despite the fact that they don't have any of the typical area damage dealers that we're familiar with. There's not a mage on this team, really. But they have tons and tons of damage. And we talked about this in the draft. Leoric, especially going into the late game, is relatively good against Greymane. He can drain his health extremely quickly. There's nothing really Greymane can do about it if he does get caught in that situation. But both teams going to set up here around the Immortal. HotsLady on the defense. Again, they're hoping for that hook. And I think this is the reason that HotsLady looked so shaky in the early game. Their composition is built to defend a fixed point. And in the laning phase of the game, that doesn't really happen. They are going to group up in the choke here, try and get the hard engage. They take a ton of free damage from that BFG. And the silence going down, Muradin will get erased. He did manage to pop Avatar before he went down, but it wasn't enough.
The Palm also just in the nick of time here, Miracle surviving once more. And it looks like Muradin is eventually going to fall, though, losing his hammer and saying, woo, goodbye. But KIS still on the retreat. I mean, they lost their main frontliner. Leoric lacks frontline control compared to other like full tanks like an ETC or a Muradin. He's more like a bruiser, so having only Leoric left is probably not going to be enough for them to hold and stabilize. So it looks like the second Immortal is going to fall into the hands of here HotsLady once again. Something I really liked, though, from Leoric was the fact that he used his Wraithwalk defensively to basically block Stitch's hooks against the Sergeant Hammers. So if they can execute a nice little maneuver like that again without Muradin falling too quickly, I think they might have what it takes to just survive through a longer skirmish. But for now, HotsLady in control. They have a talent advantage. They have the Immortal at their side. They don't even need to soak with anyone in top because they know that they have to make something happen. Generally speaking, like when you have a talent advantage on your side, like in this case HotsLady does, you don't need to split soak. You want to have all 5 team members in the same location to really force an objective, to really put the enemies into an even more dire spot.
Especially post 10, you're getting to a point where structures are worth like about as much as a wave, and kills are suddenly worth more than a wave.
Yeah.
So when you have that talent to your advantage, you're in your best interest to force fights as aggressively as possible, and you have an objective pushing. Like that's the best opportunity you're gonna have to force a fight because they have to defend. You know where the enemy team's gonna be. They have to be there, and they're not gonna be there together because they're so far behind. They need to be soaking the off lane. So you're gonna be in a 4v5 with a talent to your advantage. That is the biggest possible advantage in a game.
Exactly,
really.
And Leoric tried to do exactly that. He tried to split soak as long as he could, but looks like HotsLady is not giving them a lot of time to really rally their defenses.
Yeah, it looks like our clean feed did temporarily go down.
Oh no.
It is, again, worth noting that this is China. They do occasionally have internet problems. It will probably be back up in a couple of seconds. But I've never cast a clean feed from China that did not go down at least once during the cast at some point.
China just got hit by the Haka isolation there, I think. So hopefully they're going to come back relatively soon. So it looks like the...
China's in about the same place, but they're doing it from a live studio, so we have to give them props for that.
Right.
Their teams are, we have our teams actually in booths across the stage from each other, just the way we do at the clashes. They definitely have the highest live production value of any of the regions, despite the occasional internet.
In my opinion, the Chinese Gold Series and Gold League, like last year, had sicker production value than OGN in Korea. Like, it's just my personal opinion, but I think China really knows how to put up a good show in esports and heroes in general. Like, the amount of graphics they had, the hype videos, they were second to none.
I mean, even the production value at Eastern Clash, which the same company was responsible for, you had this 3D maps and integrations into the camera work. That, I mean, yeah, they by far have had some of the coolest production of any HOTS event ever. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing if there's more of that, or if the dedicated esports studio that the next Clash will be held at would be even better.
Yeah.